one of the highest forms of dysfunction in the human mind, because of the way that we interact with our cognition, is the mind being on an erroneous time scale. The way that it focuses on things and the way that we generate time in our mind, it is very disadvantageous. It's insane in a lot of ways, but that is kind of what we're talking about, Donna. The mind gets on this erroneous time scale because of the way it is focusing on, I guess, according to our Tuesday discussion, ordinary cognition. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Even when there are those who are thinking in a broader scale, it's it still has its violations of principle. I can't help but think of Hamilton. I just watched it again recently. It's one of the things that I've watched multiple times. Um, and I think about when the king comes in and have you seen it? Oh, well then never
Nope,
mind.
no idea. I was just going to listen and scroll your words across my screen.
Uh, a lot of the principles you're talking about were at play in
We're at
that.
play. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, I mean, so what's the answer? The answer is to focus the mind in such a way that it is no longer on its erroneous timescale. One way to do that is to use death as your advisor, learn to build appreciation. And one of the number one things that you can do, a person can do to see and not just think about, but also see, like the perspective has the aperture of one's perspective has changed so that you can perceive more in your bubble of perception. Um, I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, I
I
was,
don't know. You're talking about the way to combat that kind of thinking is to, and
well,
you're just summarizing. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, ultimately it's to do the practice, but what specifically? There are specific techniques I was going to share, but I can't remember now. So, yeah, that's okay. Actually, it would have, I had a feeling it was going to be a good segue into what we were talking about on from a good connection to what we were talking about on Tuesday and a segue into technique. But yeah, I'll see if it comes back to me or not. But what else? So we have finished up quite a bit um, in the overall practice. Oh man, I was really going somewhere with that too. That's a bummer. Hmm. It'll come back to me if we get back in the flow of conversation.
It'll come back.
Hmm. Well, I do know that there's a couple aspects of the practice that I haven't really been able to touch on for one reason or another. Usually the reason is because the questions aren't being asked. And I felt like what I was going to say was somehow related to that, but I don't remember exactly how. Um, yeah. But how is everyone's practice? I guess that's a good question.
I could share something that has
Please. Yeah.
occurred recently. Um, I find that when you spend time with your family and you haven't seen them in a long time, it's a good opportunity to see how your practice is going. And I had that opportunity last weekend to spend time with my sisters overnight, and it was quite amazing. I just we got to oh gosh, this is recorded better. We were staying overnight, and of course, there's always alcohol comes into the situation, and the prosecco was opened in the afternoon, and we had a meal booked for 6:30 in the evening. And I felt myself sort of saying, "Yeah, okay, I'll have a glass with you." And it was lunchtime, and I don't normally do that, but everybody else was piling into it. And then I decided that I would have a cup of tea. So I had a cup of tea, and over the next hour, I watched the whole thing from an observer's point of view, and the usual patterns that happen with this within, I would say, an hour, maybe 2 hours, everybody was crying about stories from the past. You know, my mom died when she was very young, 35, and my younger sister was only 5 months old. I was 2 years old. So there was all this talk going on, you know, and my sister works in the preschool. So she was talking about things that had happened with her, you know, courses and things that they do to help the children that they're teaching preschool. And she was talking about having to leave the room on several occasions because all these pointers were pointing out that she didn't get hugged from her mother, you know, all this kind of talk. And they were all crying. Everybody was crying, except me.
Sounds
I
terrible.
wasn't,
Yeah.
you know, but crying, but, you know, and enjoying the crying, if you know what I mean, like a sad movie, that kind of vibe.
Still sounds terrible, but yes.
So this goes on a bit in Irish culture, I suppose. But that went on, and uh, just to watch it all escalate and then calm down, and then everybody's voices getting louder. And I was seeing this from an outsider's point of view. And normally, I would say normally, on most occasions, I would be right in there. In the past, I would have been right in there with all of it. But it was just a different experience watching it. I'm not saying that I didn't participate, because I did a little, but I did it from my standpoint. And at one stage in the evening, my sister was talking about how distraught she was. She was going to this new gym and how anxious she was sitting out in the car, and she couldn't force herself to go in, you know, to meet new people and start this whole thing. And then later on, a thing that I did, which wasn't such a good idea, but I had my phone and I had all my cards in my phone, you know, my code cards and things. Never give away your gold. I've learned that lesson. But anyway, I took them all out, and they were big ones because I use them for sitting around the room when I'm doing hard things like weights and things that I don't necessarily want to do at that particular time. So my sister was reading them and going, and then at the end of it, she said, I think that's really sad that you have to do that. To, you know, to get by in life, that is really sad. Now my older sister was sitting across from me, and she looked at me and she was like, she was really impressed with what I was doing, and so was my other sister. But my one sister was like, I just enjoy the moment. I just enjoy my life, and I enjoy the moment. And this is the person who was sitting crying, anxious, not able to go into the gym. And anyway, but what I noticed, a good thing was, I didn't leak power around this. I didn't start saying to myself, "Oh, this is I shouldn't have shared this." I didn't. I sat back and sort of felt, "That's okay. That's okay." You know. And when she was talking about enjoying the moment and all this here, and I said to her, "What you just shared earlier about being so anxious about things, and she's got psoriasis now on her arms and things." I said, "You see these cards? That preempts that." She didn't really get it, but my other sister did. She was shaking her head and going, yes. And then shortly after that, a couple of my sisters went to bed, and I was left with the sister who was doing all the crying and talking. And I could feel a kind of vibe in the room, but I didn't let it, I didn't let judgment come in. And I was able to use deliberate folly, which we discussed on Tuesday, and bring the conversation round into a nice way, so that when we did go to bed, it was smooth, and the next morning was fine. But I just felt good the next day. Instead of feeling on a downer from drinking too much alcohol, I felt good the next day that I navigated it all and came out feeling not superior now, because I didn't want to feel like that. I had this feeling that it could go that way, you know, like I'm better than, but didn't go there. But just felt that my behavior had changed, and it was so good to go home with a clear head about all of, you know, the weekend. So
Yeah,
I
that's a
just wanted to share that. Spend
Great
time.
story. That's a
Yes,
great
but
story. It's
yeah, it's a
just
good
yeah,
that
story.
it's you were able to navigate it with your sisters, still go through the stories, the experiences, the drinking and the eating, but in a balanced state, because you were making choices
Yeah.
above the threshold of recognition instead of being a leaf at the mercy of the wind, and the wind being the tone of everybody's,
Yeah.
it's
It was lovely to notice, to be going home with that feeling of, like a sigh of relief, like, I can do this and I don't need to be drawn into the history of the family in the same way that I would have been in the past. So to notice behavioral change, I think, is the most exciting thing, from a personal point of view.
Yeah.
And then when I came home and my husband was asking me how it all went and things, and I was telling him, and he just thinks that I'm amazing anyway. But he was like, "You done really well. You're amazing." So
Mhm.
I work best on gentle encouragement, so he knows that. And so yeah, that was my experience over the weekend, and yeah, it's good to see that the practice is working for me. That's what I
Mhm.
like.
Well, I think there's a lot in that. I mean, we could dissect that story for the next 6 hours, or I could at least. Like, there's a ton in there. I think the one thing I would want to highlight that's a little bit more advanced concept, though, is the behavioral change of non-interference. So that is one of the most tricky things when I talk to people for them to wrap their minds around is, well, how do I have behavioral change? How do I get what I want? Because that's what most people are focusing on. I and me and what I want. I get it. But how do I do all that, you know, with non-interference, not trying to control, not trying to manipulate? How does that even make sense? You just gave the example of it. That is how it works. Little by little by little. So look at the Einstein quote that people love to tout. Repeat the same experiment, expecting a different result is insanity. So you have already changed the experiment because throughout the experience you have interjected deliberate intention, whereas in the past those experiences would have lacked the deliberate nature of mind. So you've interjected the deliberate nature of mind into the scenario, automatically changing the equation, thereby it is completely logical that you will change the result. So you are changing the experiment, which will change the result and will yield something quite different. And that's how it all happens on its own, without trying to control, without trying to manipulate, without setting things necessarily as specific goals or whatever, and yada yada. It ends up being this thing where I can't help but notice. So if we're using that at the beginning of our sentence, that's probably going to be more in alignment to the principles that we discussed. So yeah, gentle encouragement, there was so much principle in your story and what you were doing and how you were doing it. I think there was basic principle with the note cards, and there was um, the trickier principles of responding to people and how they respond to you, not getting upset or offended when someone says that's a shame that you have to do that, and then also the ability to recognize that people love to talk shit, they love to say this and say that, but you identify that there's a derivative. If a person is really at peace and happy and enjoying the moment, how does that coincide with anxiety and frustration and physical, discomforts that are a direct result likely of the inflammation from the way that they're thinking, the way that they're creating stress in their own bubble of perception. So, I mean, yeah, there were a million points that you made that I think are all really, really great points in your story. I really like how it displays how behavioral change will occur in this system. And that's how it occurs because you change the equation by interjecting and maintaining the deliberate nature of mind without trying to control, without trying to yield specific results. You just paid more attention to what was occurring inside and outside and navigated it rather than trying to control it and manipulate it. And then you gave the example of redirecting it. And that would be an example, an excellent example. And I wish the group from Tuesday, everybody was here, but that is a fantastic example of deliberate folly because you weren't necessarily trying to manipulate and control, but you were redirecting something that wasn't benefiting you or the group very likely. to allow that to continue without the redirection is passivity. And then, to try to confront it directly would be a type of force. You confronting her directly and saying, no, there's a really good reason for this. I'm sorry that you don't understand. That type of force would be completely unnecessary because that's not going to influence their mind really. And that's not necessary for you to do in your own experience. So, what's the point? The only other thing I would say though is I would be very watchful of alcohol. I don't really get down on people and their choices and what they want to do, very non-judgmental, but alcohol shuts cognition down. And imagine your light bright. Alcohol will fundamentally bring that light back in. It dims it because it's shutting down your internal organs. It's shutting down your
It's a
cognition.
depressant.
It's a major depressant. Yeah. Depressant, stimulant. There's so many things that are doing a little bit of both. THC is doing a little bit of both. But mostly it's a stimulant, stimulating certain neural receptors or chemicals in the body. But alcohol and because it's a depressant to the extent that it is in the way that it works, it also is going to encourage the habitual mind. It is going to encourage all of those things. So yeah, but balance, I get it. But I would still, and you did it. So this caution isn't for you. You gave an example of, like you said, you had a little bit and you kind of got into things, but you were still very, how could I judge? I wasn't there and you were doing your thing. And so no human alive can judge, or have a valid opinion of what you did, So, but in general, for viewership, and then just to keep in mind for others, alcohol is one of the worst things that we can do in terms of the deliberate mind and our cognition. I get it a little bit sometimes, yada, yada, whatever. Shayna has a glass of wine towards the end of the day where that type of cognition isn't necessary. She's winding down, allowing the muscles to relax. Again, I'm nobody's judge. I don't want to tell people what they should and shouldn't do, but in principle and biologically, alcohol can be very disadvantageous to the deliberate mind, especially in social settings, because very likely and Ida, I'm sure you can see how what I'm saying could be true. It wasn't true for you this weekend because of the deliberate nature and the deliberate mind and practice that you were doing. So you were able to navigate that within your own balance. So I think that's a great example of not rejecting, but also not indulging. But again, alcohol would take a person away from their practice and it will interject them into the four destroyers. Very likely when people are drinking, you can see all five destroyers at play. And our society knows it. We know that alcohol is literally one of the worst things on earth and one of the worst things that we can do to our body. And there's emerging research that alcohol every day, even in small amounts, is bad for your body because it accumulates, the accumulation principle. Alcohol can really build up, especially in women. That's where most of the research is that women and their liver, women suffer more than men because of the muscle or the differentiation of muscle between most men and most women. But yeah, I don't want to be the preacher. I'm not going to stand up on a
No, you're
soapbox.
not.
But
And
yeah.
there is a culture in Ireland around drinking, as I'm sure you've heard. But you need to be on antibiotics or pregnant not to drink. People think there's something wrong with you. There's
Oh yeah, no, I
actually
get it for
something
sure.
wrong with you. But
What's
yeah, I can see and I have felt even just at the weekend taking 2 glasses of wine on a Friday or Saturday night, how the next morning feels, even if I don't have a hangover, just how
Oh yeah,
your energy feels, how my energy body feels, if you know what I mean.
I know what you
Because
mean. Yeah.
it's just harder, it's just not as fresh. And I look forward to the weekend to have that difference, although I could have that anytime that I choose to. But I don't drink alcohol during the week, but at the weekends it's nice to have that different thing, a glass of wine with your dinner at night. But the feeling is different. But then I'm not getting up early on those mornings, so I can balance that.
You're all good. Yeah, the
Yeah.
principle would be, can I have the alcohol or the glass of wine at night or not have the glass of wine at night? If the answer is no, I need to have my glass of wine at night, I would keep an eye on that. If the answer is I'm gonna have it, but I don't feel like I need it per se, like a cup of coffee in the morning, I like it, I prefer it, I can have it. But if I don't, I'm a sailor in the wind, I'm all good, then we're truly free. But that's for you to evaluate, not for anyone else.
So now it's reduced to a weekend thing, but
Yeah,
a weekend thing where I sort of think, well, do I really want a glass of wine, or is it just because it's Saturday?
there you go.
So I have to look at that.
For sure. Yeah, and we all do, because we all have different things that we're navigating, that are habitual, that have momentum. And if we're doing our practice, then we're not going to declare war on it. We're just going to continue to change the experiment by interjecting deliberate attention. That's it. That is non-interference, and I think that's a perfect. One thing I'll just interject is that and this kind of steers it a slightly different direction, although I don't want to, because your example was so good. But how the energy body, the body, and the cognition, the psychology, how all of those kind of work together. And again, non-interference. I don't try to manipulate the energy body. Does that make sense? The physical body will automatically influence the energy body, and intention, that part of our psychology, will automatically affect the energy body. Yi leads qi, the mind leads the energy. So there are two things already that are directly influencing the energy body, the physical body and my attention and intention. That's really what it is intention. We've just brought those two together so we can use those words almost interchangeably at a certain point in our practice. For most human beings, those two words are miles apart, intention and
But
attention. Yeah.
that those mornings, say for example, on a Saturday
Mhm.
morning, I've got up and I've had a couple of glasses of wine on a Friday night. I know that by getting up and doing my 18 gates or whatever I choose to do, lie on my Shakti mat, go for a swim in the sea, that if I, in my mind, knows that if I do those things, my energy body will be more vibrant.
Yes.
So I choose to do those things,
Yes.
even if I don't necessarily feel like doing them.
Hmm.
I use the practice to steer myself in that direction, and then once you're there, you're there.
And
Yeah.
you've also discovered that the alcohol causes a lag or a
Hmm.
fuzziness or a heaviness in your ability to do that. That's why you don't choose to do it. It's not the rule about the alcohol. It's not the morality about the alcohol. It's not the this is what I do, the habit of the alcohol or not having it. Is it going to contribute to my attention and intention, or is it going to pull me away from that? So yeah, it's
This
all part of it.
It's all a part of it. And this is also actually an indication of where we are as a society, as a culture, as a species, because most people, Ida, they don't recognize their energy body has been affected. They don't even, you know how the saying, people don't know their stomach, that they have a stomach until it hurts? If they're not feeling their physical body until they have pain, they are completely unaware of their energy body. And that is one of the things that must be resolved in the human experience in order for us to continue to change over time. And that actually is the reason that I have created the differentiation between ordinary and non-ordinary cognition, because non-ordinary cognition is what helps that happen. What helps this process of what we're talking about actually occur. Does that make
And it's
sense?
also why Gong is so important, because you're starting right from the beginning with
Yes.
body awareness.
Yes.
And yeah, I think that's great and it's critical. And another thing I think is really important that you said after Ida's story was that all of the things that she couldn't help but notice are a derivative of the practice. So it's also the way she navigated this situation and the words she used to describe what happened and how she navigated the situation, are different than if she were in a place of counterbalance. We'd be talking about battlegrounds and things like that, and how to navigate. We're always talking about navigating, right? Navigating our lives and what principles come up. But the way that Ida navigated it and described, also the way that she described her navigation, is indication of where she is in the practice, and that all of one of the reasons she could choose non-interference, she could feel the pull towards defending herself with her sister, she could feel the pull towards the sister that agreeing with her, you know, was validating. She could feel the pull towards, look how much they're drinking, or, you know, the judgment. She could feel the pull about all of that, but the fact that she didn't, that her intention was not to interfere, came as a derivative of practicing all these years. It doesn't just happen because you tell us so. It doesn't just happen because, and she could also see where in her, the other people involved were in their own practice, or their own balance of existing above the level of recognition and below the regular, by their responses. Oh, it's so sad you have to do that just to get by. Well, get by is the operative term there, right? I'm choosing to get by with a way, with multiple points of attention, and embodying the present moment. And get by isn't just surviving without falling apart at the seams anymore. I'm not just trying to get through this arduous life. I'm trying to create my vibrant life. And so by other people's responses, you can see, you can't help but notice where they are in that continuum. And the fact that you can still participate. The deliberate folly is, these are my sisters and I love them. I've chosen these attachments. I love when we get together. And this is where I want to participate and appreciate, and avoiding the pull of judgment, and I don't fit in like I used to. It doesn't belong there anymore. And all of that is a derivative of the accumulation of practice. That's where the behavioral change really comes in. It's not just, well, we talked about this in class. It's not just, I'm going in the sea because I promised everybody and myself that I would go in the sea every day. It's because there's a derivative from this formal part of my practice that I want. It is part of my evolution and my, how I want to participate in my life. So yeah, it was a great, great, great example.
And also, I could use that equation of love being not judging, but still connecting with.
Mhm.
I could see my sister, and instead of me feeling sorry that she felt that I needed to do these things, and what an odd fish I have probably turned into. See, that's just my assumption of some of the girls were looking at me with curiosity, and because it was such a noisy gathering, only getting little flashes of conversation, but they were interested in some of the things. How do you know that? You know, that kind of thing. You're getting the odd wee flash of that. But I could also just love them all, and without, could see it. I could just see the patterns. I could see my sister's pattern that has been going on for years, and that's not a judgment. It's just a scene, and still, you know, yeah, just still feel love.
The observation without the interference allows for more space for you to love them. The connection is greater because of that.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many principles. And then the terminology that you're choosing to use, I don't think you're using it just because I use it, but you're seeing how it applies. Like, why would I use the word seeing? Not just because it's a cool word that seers and sages and mystics. No, I'm actually starting to understand why those words were used in the first place. Why did we use the words luminosity? Why do we use those words when we say that we're seeing? It's because the words apply. That's how it feels. So they're great descriptions, but you are using the word how I use the word seeing, a broader perspective. The patterns become more aware, and it's because of what Donna just said, the non-interference. You can observe the moment. Your bubble of perception is a lens that is, I would say, probably a lot more clear. So there's just more available to you. And that's that's the whole thesis of hydrostasy, is that there is this whole other aspect of the human experience that is available to us. And some people are just too busy talking shit about it rather than that's kind of what, very likely I see it a lot. We don't have to use your family member as an example, but that delusion of spirituality, they have these concepts and these ideas in their mind, so they think they're spiritual. Look at the parallels that has with religion. So instead of God or some deity, it's the universe. Have faith in the universe. The universe has and a lot of the things are just replaced. It's the same behavior, but it's just being replaced by different words, different concepts and ideas, but it's all still really just all the same stuff occurring. It's the same patterns. So that delusion of spirituality is something that I think is it just is. It can be very troubling, I suppose, to a certain extent, but yeah, I'm just really impressed. I think I could say, I think impressed is an okay word. I am impressed that you are able to see this, and in some regards, I'm assuming that the overall amount of cognition had been reduced throughout that experience compared to what it normally would have been. And so all of these principles, everything we're talking about is in play with your example. So definitely going to highlight this on YouTube or in the group, because I think that others should watch this, because the words that you're using, the way that you're using them, the examples that you're setting, it's proving the system. It's proving the principles. Of course, we don't need to prove it because they're principles. You can look in nature and see these things. So it's already empirically evident, but you're creating theoretical evidence in terms of we're reproducing, putting that in air quotes, but reproducing the experiment to yield predictable results. That's science. That's why you have a scientific method, is so that you can make accurate predictions on things. That's what science is all about. That's why we experiment. So we can say that if you do this, it will yield this. So you and the rest of the group, over time, I'm assuming if they continue to practice, we all continue to practice, we will all give the theoretical evidence through what we're doing. And no, yeah, I get it. Yeah, you never know, you don't want to put anybody in a box, but yeah, very likely they won't. And that's okay. A lot of the world is, in a lot of different ways, not ready for what we have to talk about, especially because it's non-religious. That's going to be trouble for a lot of people who are extremely religious. I'm assuming, I don't know, maybe they can work it out. But yeah, very good example, Ida. There's so much. I think the original thing that came to my mind that I had forgotten, it was connected to what you were saying earlier, but the best way to move past the erroneous timescale is to practice not doing. And practicing not doing is already written in different books. There's a book called Do Everything and Do Nothing. Pretty much anything Tai Chi, Wu Wei, Wu Wei, you can research this. It's out there. Pretty sure Eckhart talked about it in some way. Don Juan definitely did. He talked about not doing. I think he used those words, not doing, which is also Wu Wei. Wu Wei is doing, not doing. That looks like just do energy. So The not doing, that's also, the not doing is also that observational, when you're stepping into the I can't help but notice, when you're seeing, you're also not doing. And when you're in that mode of just do energy and adapting to the present moment, that is the doing, not doing, because you're not attempting to manipulate, you're not attempting to control, but yet you're physically active with a lot of volition and will and deliberate mind. But if a person wanted to really address the erroneous time scale, especially in warrior training, I would highly recommend the not doing type of meditation. Manta style sitting, that's it. It's doing, not doing. A praying mantis is waiting, but it knows what it's waiting for. It doesn't know when it's going to happen exactly, but it knows why it's there. It knows what it's waiting for, so it can wait patiently.
I love that.
And that's the meditation that I would offer in warrior training, is manta style sitting. And when you practice not doing, you can start to step outside of your mind's erroneous time scale. Almost every human being on earth, this is in the 99.9 percentile, their mind is on an erroneous time scale because they're not using death as their advisor. They're not appreciating the present moment because they're not tuned into it, very likely. And because there's no appreciation, there's very little contentment. And remember, contentment can be moving contentment. That's doing, not doing. So you can feel content, which is all of the means, just let it go, man. You just got to let go. That's what contentment is. So if you're feeling contentment, you have let go, and we're not just talking shit about letting go. That's what the spiritual community is it's a lot of talking shit. And that's fine. And it's based around all of these little moments, the moments that we talk about where we have brushes with spirit. Because we just did our 90-minute yoga class, we're going to have about 90 seconds of a mind that isn't interfering. But the average yoga practitioner is engaged in thought almost the entire time. And of course, you have the yoga teacher encouraging them to let that go. Which is what that 90-minute or 60-minute yoga practice is. It's not supposed to be about the movements themselves, the asanas. It's supposed to be about the mind uniting with the present moment, that union. Yeah, so.
I find that it makes people, it's also an observation that I can see. In the common mind, for people who are not practicing anything or have no interest in it or think that it's a bunch of woke garbage, um, it's kind of easy to get. But when you're in a community of people that are supposed to be professing that embodiment of um, of mind, of quiet mind, people feel really uncomfortable when you're quietly content in a social situation. Um, they really start to feel uncomfortable that you're the oddball because you're quiet. Um, and I just notice that more and more, that they're they start to get agitated because they'll ask me what I think. So Donna, what do you think? So Donna, what do you think? Because they assume my quiet means that I'm sitting in judgment or something. Like it makes people uncomfortable when when you're quiet. I can remember when it made me uncomfortable if somebody was too quiet, before I was practicing. So I can understand it. But
Yeah.
that do nothing, that space of contentment has a lot of stillness in it. And especially if one of my points of attention is the quiet behind the sound, is the shadow behind the light. I'm actively doing something. There's an activity going on there. It's not observable to anybody. But if what I'm noticing is the peace behind things, then I'm consequently feeling very peaceful because I'm connecting with that. And it's upsetting to others often.
Yeah, just in principle, you are not in alignment to them. And that's not a us versus a they. That's not a better. This is an empirically evident thing that what you're doing is putting you in alignment to the moment as it's happening, whereas the common mind is in alignment to the common forms of cognition, repetitive, habitual, not making us feel well, comparing, contrasting, very subtle attempts of manipulation. Have you ever met somebody and in 15 minutes you know everything about them? In some ways, they're just projecting their image and they want you to assimilate that. They want you to view them the way that they're viewing themselves. That's not an intentional form of manipulation. So no need to be paranoid, but it is there. It is a form of manipulation. When a guy wants, like he sees a pretty girl, he knows goddamn well everything he's saying from the point that he finds her attractive is to bring it in, you know? And it comes off very, very so, oh, hey, come here often? Yeah, me too. Oh, no way. Yeah, me too. And it gets a lot of me too. And then you start telling stories and sharing that is all just a mating ritual. And it is very subtle form of manipulation. Not subtle is when you're intentionally trying to manipulate somebody. And that's kind of there too in the male mind. So this is an amazing group study, and I wish, I don't wish, it's fine. But this is definitely going to be beneficial when people rewatch it, if they rewatch it, when they whatever. But Donna just gave an amazing warrior training technique, which is the abstract, paying attention to the shadow behind the light, the silence behind the sound, the stillness behind the moving object. That can become a technique that you practice. So I really like that you interjected that as well. And you also gave a perfect example of why deliberate folly is necessary. Ida did too, in her example with the weekend setting. Your deliberate folly was the very definition of how I use the word deliberate folly, and it was to your benefit. That's why you're doing it, because it's to your benefit. But also notice, Ida, how it was a benefit to the entire group, because if you would have got defensive, that would have affected the entire soup that everybody was swimming in. And that's my principle, helps create the conditions for suffering around you. So everything that you guys are saying and the examples that you're giving is proving, although it doesn't need proof, but it is the theoretical evidence of the system. So darn, I really appreciate, some of the things that you guys are sharing. It's really nice. But then just to recap, if I were to do like a auxiliary training and I wanted to help a person with the mind's erroneous time scale, but also how many people do you know can just sit? Okay, I won't do that for the whole class, but I could. How many people
It's my favorite thing is to just sit.
just sit? And I do admit,
Me too, Ada. And
I love
it's
it.
starting to make my
Oh, you muted yourself, Donna. It's starting to make you feel what?
starting to make my family, my cousins nervous. I have a cousin,
Yeah.
my Brooklyn cousin, and we go out and carry on together. We really have a lot of fun. And we're very similar, but there are differences that make us very different. And anyway, we carry on and usually make a scene because we're loud and Italian. And that's what we do. But we have a lot of fun and laugh. But she'll call me and go, okay, what's going on? What's new? And she's got a million things to tell me about what's new. This happened, that happened, this person, this thing, that I met this person, it was really great. Oh, we had this great laugh. And it's usually very entertaining and we have a lot of fun. And I'll tell her a similar thing that happened to me. But sometimes I'll go, nothing. Well, what are you doing today? What would you do this morning? Did you go to the beach? Did you go to things? Did you go to? I'm like, nothing. Because I'm not going to describe my meditation to her. I'm not going to do like my morning was my bubble of perception was populated, but I really did a lot of sitting, and it's making her nervous. She thinks I've retired and moved, and I'm gonna fade away, and,
I have
and
so many stories like this, Donna.
I'm gonna get old. And what do you
Yeah,
mean you did nothing?
yeah. A new acupuncturist had started at the clinic, and she's just like, so what do you do for fun? And I'm like, well, you know, Everything I do, I find a little bit of fun in. I can look out of a window and
Somebody asked me that
do it.
at a barbecue when I first moved in. So, what do you do for fun? And I kind of just laughed. I didn't know how to respond. And then they carried on like they couldn't stand even that pause in the conversation. So, you know, it went unnoticed. I never give him my list of things.
Okay, that's it. So this conversation has elegantly moved on to the first enemy of knowledge. And the first enemy of knowledge in relation to not doing. What is the first enemy of knowledge? And again, this is according to Ernest. So, you know, this is not etched in the stars or anything. I've just organized this information, and if you remember it, I think it will be beneficial to your practice, but not required. But does anybody remember from that Tuesday class, what is the first enemy of knowledge? Michael, what is the first enemy of knowledge? Calling on you. What is the first enemy of knowledge according to the shit that I talk?
Thinking.
No, but thinking is a part of the answer.
Repetitive thinking.
That's also a part of the answer.
Sensationalizing.
Could be definitely a part of the answer.
Dumb shit.
Almost definitely a part of the answer.
Thinking about self and other.
Usually occurs. Yes, so that is a part of the answer. And all of this is doing what? What do all of these answers have in common?
Thinking about something rather than experiencing
Okay,
it.
so where's the experience? Where does that exist?
It's in the doing.
It's in the doing, it's in the present moment happening now, right? That's where the experience exists.
Yes.
That's where the look at your own example. If you weren't present and seeing, Ida, you gave an example of seeing. Like the way that I use the word, it's not mystical, is it? Your mind was different in that setting than it normally would have been. You had a broader perspective. You learned from the present moment. Would you agree that you were learning as the moment was occurring and growing as the moment was occurring? Would you say that that was accurate that weekend?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, absolutely. So if you're
So
not
do you mean above the threshold of recognition and below the threshold? Is that what you're referring to?
kind of, but I'll just give you the answer. The first enemy of knowledge is distraction. Distraction from what? Distraction from the moment at hand. All of your answers were a distraction, right? Michael was saying thinking dumb shit. That's a distraction from the moment at hand. If a person is distracted from the moment at hand, they have almost no fucking chance under the sun of learning as it occurs. They must learn after the fact, and that relies on memory. That relies on other people's memory, telling you all the dumb shit you did last night because you were drunk and stupid, right? So, or you were just stupid and not drunk, and yeah, they just have to tell you about yourself. So, one of the things to address this, if somebody were to say, all right, Ernest, give me a fucking technique, something that I can do to help address the first enemy of knowledge, practice not doing. I had an advantage because I did it accidentally. I went outside and I sat on a curb, and I was supposed to be managing the movie theater, but it kind of manages itself. So I would go outside, sit on a fucking curb and look at a tree and be absolutely okay with not doing. Why? Because 4 p.m. was going to come regardless. So I might as well just sit here, enjoy this tree, look at the sun, and practice my practice, you know, because I had note cards at that time. That's when I invented doing it, as I wrote it down on a note card and started to take it with me everywhere. Or I would use my cell phone, and I still have the notes from 2010 on my notepad from my iPhone. So I had a little bit of an advantage because I didn't know what I was doing. I did it accidentally, and it still yielded the result of sitting on the curb and taking the meditative posture and teaching my body how to meditatively sit. You know how some people use a yoga block? I used a curb. I didn't mean to use the curb, but it helped my body take that posture. So the bottom line is that practicing not doing is one of the best ways to learn how to be okay with the present moment and not distracted. This is what plagues American society. This is one of the primary destroyers, is the entertainment destroyer. Why do they need the entertainment destroyer? Because they're fucking bored all the time. Why are they bored? Because their mind is complex and they don't know what to do with it. So they have to do these things to keep their mind entertained. Look at their cell phone while they're crossing the street. What is so imperative that you need to constantly be looking at your cell phone while exiting and entering a grocery store? If I could teach the world one thing and just implant it into their brain, it would be spatial fucking awareness. Be aware of your surroundings so you can stop running into me, so you can stop having your conversations in the middle of the sidewalk. Shayna knows what I'm talking about, and I am adding a little bit of talking shit just because it can be just like, well, why are you doing this? Like, don't you see that there's other people that you're knocking into so that you can grab the item off the shelf?
Put your phone down. I agree.
Put your fucking phone down. Like, there is nothing that is that important. That I get it. Like, I do get it. So believe me, I'm not soapbox preaching. It is a distraction from the present moment, removing you from your physical body, removing you from the spiritual or the unseen aspect of the human being, the energy body. Your stomach you don't know you have a stomach till it hurts. You don't know that you have an energy body until you're about to die. That would be a shame. That would be a shame if that's the only time you get an introduction to your own energy body, is when you're about to lose it. Air quotes, lose it. So yeah, this practice is incredibly important. And if anybody wants to really practice being okay with the present moment and addressing the first enemy of knowledge, practice not doing above the threshold of active recognition. Manta style sitting. Or you can do manta style sitting while standing. That's funny, but you can.
So you are doing something.
You're doing something.
You're not doing anything physical. Well, you are. Doing, not doing. So
Doing, not doing. Yes.
yes, so staying still and practicing
Deliberate
points of attention, right? Deliberately.
deliberately. Yep. So that would look a lot like sitting at a bench and you're doing your tricks of attention, and that's all right. That's enough. For the common mind, that's and again, I'm not using this term to create separation and differentiation. I don't need that. I don't necessarily need it. I can leave my phone behind. I can, and I'm getting better. Again, I'm not soapbox preaching, so these things are ever expanding, and I'm learning better ways to navigate different things as they come up. Habits are coming up. Habits are being reduced by means of my practice, etc. So not soapbox preaching. Ernest isn't perfect. I'm not trying to say that, but the mind is so distracted that it is almost incapable of doing some of the things that we're talking about, especially in hydrostasy. And that does create a separation. The average mind requires, people are different, but it requires stimuli. And not stimuli that you're deliberately intending. Like that's different. That's still a form of stimuli because the brain is still doing something. Because you're always doing something. Like there's just, even if you're just the watcher, that's a deliberate thing that you're doing, but you're also not doing. So if you can get over that talking in circles, then you understand not doing. Does that make sense? An excellent practice.
Yeah.
I would recommend that in warrior training. Practice not doing. Notice how often your brain is not content. A person cannot be happy if they're not content. In the way that Thich Nhat Hanh and I have chosen to use the word happiness. All that makes sense? Any questions? Anything about not doing as a practice? You could use your note card, what points of attention that you're going to have in that moment. And then eventually, depending on your practice, you can have that capstone active while just sitting, while just standing. And your mind is no longer on the erroneous time scale. The perspective starts to expand. And before you know it, you're learning from the moment as it happens. That is a result of seeing. And I call that, and the way to begin that is through the first gate of seeing, and that is gaps in the overall amount of cognition. Ida, would you say that there must have been some gaps in the overall amount of cognition and the usual habitual cognition that would have normally occurred that weekend?
Yes. And you notice them before I made the decision to have a cup of tea, before I made the decision to interject
Mhm.
things into the conversation that I normally would have done. There's a space first, which is nice, rather than, like Donna said, being a leaf at the mercy of the wind. You know, the paper bag in the wind that's going that way and that way and that way.
So the
And
cup of
following,
tea was, you were inspired to the cup of tea.
I was, yes, rather than the third glass of Prosecco. I'm not a saint, you know.
So that, I guess you're implying you had two, but you didn't go for the third. And that's why, and I also think that's an excellent example of how balance is an individual thing, but it's still something that the individual can feel. And you can mark my words, one of the most injurious things that you can do to the energy body is knowingly, deliberately, and intentionally indulging, which is choosing to exist in an extreme. And if you're doing it as a violation of principle and you know that you're violating principle, the suffering is going to be exponentially worse for you and potentially for others around you. And I know that if we look at our lives, we can see when this principle has been at play, when we have helped create suffering for others around us because of our own suffering. Again, not taking full responsibility for the other person because they have their own, but we helped create the conditions for it. All right, so any questions about your practice, like what we're going to do today? I have some battlegrounds that I have identified. I don't remember the last time I've been in a school classroom. And, my college is actually, I have classes on campus. So, I'm going into a new setting, a new environment. I have new things going on. I have an orientation today. These are all things that in the past I could feel a leaf at the mercy of the wind, different energies that just are all over the place. And I can't help but notice that those things aren't there, but I also can't help but notice that there's certain pulls towards things. So, I am.
Sure, but if your situation was predictable, if you were doing something, if you had a lot of routine in your life, you would be looking for what's new in the present moment, um, amidst the routine. Now you've got a whole bunch of new stuff readily available for you to focus upon or to choose as points of attention without having to search for them.
True. Yeah. So I know that the experience is going to be something that I can learn directly from. But I'm just giving an example that I'm still practicing. So I'm recognizing that there's an area throughout my day, throughout my week, throughout my month, throughout my year, whatever, that has a little bit more of the residual habit, a little bit more of the old patterns, and I know that. So,
So when was when was the last time you were in class regularly? How long ago? Approximately. You don't know?
can't quite remember. It would have been in the 2000, see Kobe, 5 years old, 4 years old, 3 years old, 2003, 2004, something.
Okay, so then I'm curious to hear I couldn't help but notice observations,
I'll
just
have a
like
lot of
Ida meets with her sisters regularly. There was apparently a pattern of general points that they do when they're together, and how, because as a derivative of her practice, her behavior in something that was predictable, fairly predictable in a gross way in terms of the major factors that happen, how it was different because she's different, because she's approaching her moments differently. So I'd be curious to see what you observed from the last time you were in that setting, and and now that you're in that setting again, what has changed in as a derivative of your practice from then to now.
That sounds like fun. I can blog about that too or something. But yeah, there'll be a lot, I'm sure. I mean, there's a lot already. So yeah.
Sure.
Yep. All right. Any questions, comments, concerns? Anything I could tie to previous discussions or anything I can help you with in terms of your practice? I would say one of the only things I haven't really talked much about is that alchemy aspect. Questions haven't really come up, and I didn't have the opportunity to do a full class. Some of it would be a little bit of the cutting edge aspects of hydrostasy, such as the three centers of cognition. I don't think I've ever talked about the 3 centers of cognition before. That will tie directly into the internal alchemy aspect. Internal alchemy ties directly into overall health and wellness. And then also, because of that internal alchemy, we start to notice, can't help but notice, that the third glass of whatever Ida was mentioning, that wine or alcoholic beverage, that third glass doesn't feel quite like I want to. So, it's not, you're able to learn and pay attention and communicate with your physical body and energy body directly. That's what Ida was starting to point out through her example, that she was actually starting to notice the energy body and interact with the energy body almost directly and how it feels, because she could notice the next day she didn't drink as much alcohol and her entire bubble of perception was moving differently than if she had. So a lot of people don't know that they have a stomach until it hurts. They don't know that they have an energy body until they're about to die, or they're faced in a life or death situation, or they get a glimpse of death because they had a brush with it. The energy body can really take over during those moments. And so people don't know that they have an energy body. They don't feel the energy body their entire life. That's actually one of the reasons I want to do acupuncture, is because I believe that acupuncture, in addition to movement, will help a person perceive their energy body directly. You can actually start to make your decisions and your choices in what you should do in life directly from your energy body. Abraham Hicks has talked about that forever. I have a system that can help a person access that. We have a system that can help a person.
Oh, I think that's part of the sense that I always say. I think there are more senses than we define in the 5. That's what a gut instinct comes from. I think that's where those terminologies comes from. So you feel certain emotions, not even emotions. You can sense things in different parts of your body. Sometimes you get chills. I don't know. There are different ways that the energy body communicates with me, and
Yes.
vice versa. I haven't thought of it the other way, though. I haven't thought of the alchemy of intention on my energy body. No, that's not true. I guess when I'm feeling the energy, my proprioception, I guess I am initiating it. It's not always the other way around, but I'm not always perceiving something with that sense. Sometimes I'm infusing it into. Is that the alchemy that you're talking about?
It
I think
is.
it might have been the way that we're going to go in the beginning of the class that you forgot. I think you were
That was
heading.
the not doing. I was going to go to the not doing.
Oh,
Yeah. Something that we said in the beginning of class pointed me towards describing not doing and why that's important. But what you said with the gut is, and even chills and the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system are a part of the perceptive interaction with the energy body. So here's the practice when we talk about internal alchemy, because you just mentioned it and it could seem appropriate. It's really simple. Attention on eventually all 3 of the dantians, the 3 major dantians, the lower dantian, middle dantian, upper dantian.
that's always on my card. What is that?
There you go.
D2? Is that D2?
D2. Do 20,
Do 20 and
CV 17,
and K1s.
CV
That's
6.
always on
Okay, one for you. Yeah, okay, that's cool too.
under my feet. Yeah, that's always on my card.
Yeah, when we start talking about the Tai Chi mind, K1 will be very important for the psychological energy of on, rooting, pressing down. So you will get you'll get that concept quicker because of the attention on K1. And all you have to do is put your attention, and your breath will help as well, into K1. That's it. Not manipulation, not trying to control. The energy will follow the attention and intention, and it happens automatically, which smoothens the flow, and you can perceive it more. It becomes more available to you. And quite frankly, I call that the undiscovered country, because the more that we can perceive our energy body, I think that that is a totally unmapped area that future generations hopefully will be exploring to the nth degree, in
Well,
addition to the physical world.
it's
Yes.
a derivative of the Qigong practice. It is, just because you mentioned it and I thought that I would do it. Like I have that little stick figure in my mind and I don't always remember what it's called, but I place my attention, do 20, top of my, the center of my
All
head,
you gotta do. Yeah.
CV17, CV6, and K1s. And as I do that, my I can feel my self-correct posture or aligned posture, balanced posture. My pace, if I'm walking, changes. It doesn't change. It smooths out. It's like putting your focus on your breath, not with an attempt to change it. It just becomes smoother and a slight bit smoother and slight bit deeper because of my attention on it. Same thing with the focusing on those points. I align just naturally because I've put my attention on those points. And then the energy body is more available to me. Just like Ida saying she goes in the sea because that's what it does for her. She has a bunch of points of practices or points of attention or a combination of them that she knows from doing it and not doing it, that it contributes to her awareness of her energy body.
Yes. And then technique, specific technique is to place attention, your mind's attention, on, as Donna was pointing out, those three Dantians, or K1 is good too. Okay, yep, we're almost done, Ida. So you won't miss.
What's K1?
K1 is the bubbling well, the bottom of the foot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can do that one, but also the three Dantians, that one's important. Those three are very important. So I would recommend putting your attention on those.
Yeah.
In addition to the imagination of the micro or macrocosmic orbit. That's it. And just do
Say
that.
that again, please.
The imagining the micro and the macro and or the micro macrocosmic orbit, as described in Tai Chi, traditional Chinese medicine, Qigong, micro and macrocosmic orbit. So
I don't know what that is. I know when I focus on those points, I get a spiral thing happening. And sometimes the spiral moves up and sometimes it moves down and sometimes it does both at the same time where the energy is passing each other, becomes an alchemy of one thing. But I don't create that I feel that start to happen and then I can see it in my imagination. I don't imagine it first. It happens after I focus on those points. So I don't know what the micro and macro is. Maybe another class.
I'm bringing it up on yeah, okay. I'll share my screen. You can also just Google it, but do you see the path that the imagination is following? And then you also sync your breath to it, but you have the breath and the imagination taking this route around the body. This is giving the microcosmic, because it's not going down to the feet. Macrocosmic includes the feet. So macro, whole body. Micro is from Ren 1, I guess you could say, all the way back around to Ren 1. Does that make sense? Ming Men is That one
It
is
does make sense. I've never done that. It spirals for me. I don't know how else
Charles.
to
That's all
describe
fine.
it.
That's all going to be something a little bit different. Micro and macrocosmic orbit will have a purpose. The purpose will be to basically align the energy centers and improve your overall health. So this is something that will help a person if they do this. You're learning a lot of different things with the principles as well. But this is one of the ways to get the energy body to flow smoothly through the meridians by, of course, non-interference, getting out of the way, and you're using your imagination, which is an abstract aspect of nature. So you're interacting with the energy body with something that's closer to the energy body, and you're not really manipulating and controlling. You're helping to encourage the natural flow of the meridians. So the energy body can flow like you're talking about in a bunch of different ways and crossing, and it can feel different. Like sometimes it can feel more visceral and thick. Sometimes it feels thinner and a little bit wiry, like filaments of. That's all good. You'll notice all of that with seeing. Notice it, enjoy it, let it be a part of your moment like we do in principle. The micro and macrocosmic orbit is a specific technique designed to help encourage the natural flow of the energy body to coincide with the physical and the psychological. If we were doing this from the day we were born, we would be impeccably healthy.
No, I really need that. So, because I can feel the imbalances and I try not to focus on them, because then when you're focusing on where it's unbalanced, that's too much like force, and then I just
Yep.
let it go.
Yep.
But the doing that would help balance all of that. Tell me what I Google and look it up.
You're just going to look up micro and macrocosmic orbit.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. And really, it's just the direction. So typically, you're imagining with the breath. If you can add the breath, now we have the three. We're adding what we will eventually call the three convergences of
I
breath.
can't help but not add the breath, because
Exactly.
when
Yeah.
my tendency is to hold my breath to concentrate,
Mhm.
to focus, and then I can feel the imbalance of that, and then I have to breathe with it because it doesn't feel right now.
And it's still just intention, because notice that it's your intention that is moving your breath. And so when your intention moves your breath, your intention moves the energy by default. So you don't even have to try to control or manipulate. And then the energy will also move in accordance with your imagination, because you're deliberately moving your imagination, which will deliberately interact with the energy body. Almost every culture separated by space and time will connect imagination to the non-physical, the energy body, and that the imagination is a bridge between the two. We see that in everyday life, but yet it still falls on deaf ears because
Yeah,
yeah,
it's when the birds let me get close, or the birds come sit, like that interaction I had with that man that I gave that example, that I thought he was meditating. He was
that's yeah,
certainly
good
doing
example.
nothing,
Yeah,
intentionally.
yes,
And then the bird came close and started singing at him, like that. Nature responds to that, because that's what's happening in nature all the time. We're the anomaly when we're not doing that.
mhm. Yes. So what I just delivered to you then is a part of the warrior training layer of the Gong practice. That is, well, one of the ways that we start beginning the alchemy is just paying attention to the dantians, and we start that in the very beginning because that is a recommended
I
point.
think that's going to be a great webinar.
It's a very important one, yeah, and it's a technique that a beginner would have a lot of trouble with, because you're including attention on a lot of things: the breath, the imagination, the physical body, the energy. That's not a place to start. The only reason that I'm recommending this to you is because it sounds appropriate for your
What
practice.
it's not a place to skip either, because
Not a place to
apparently I
skip.
have. Then
Yeah,
that's why I can dip my foot into some hydrostasy, but where my health is not balanced, and I think it's
yeah.
what's missing for me.
And this is where Gong meets traditional Chinese medicine meets Tai Chi. And I have organized this for myself because I want to live until I'm 110. So I'm going to share this with others because it is aligning traditional Chinese medicine to everything else. And then don't leave Western medicine out. You know, if you need a lung transplant, go get you a lung transplant. Don't try Reiki. I mean, try Reiki, do Reiki, that's fine,
I
but
get it.
don't rely on Reiki when the doctor says you need a lung transplant. Find the balance between the two.
Yeah, I've already got that balance going.
You
To
do,
me, that's a
for
more
sure.
of a gross, I need the fine tuning of that. And I think that this micro macro cosmic orbit will be the fine tuning of that for me in a way
Yes.
that's accessible.
And then Donna, when I start to teach Tai Chi, which is a part of, I'm only offering Tai Chi now in hydrostasy, because what you do with your mind in the practice is what you do with your mind in the Tai Chi forms. So if you're doing the micro, macro, cosmic orbit with your breath, with other points of attention, you are going to feel the energy, if you don't already, but for other people, you're going to feel the energy body. One of my goals in doing all of this was to help a person feel the energy body, to perceive it directly so that it's not abstract to them. And that's the reason I want to do acupuncture. Of course, I want to help people with other things that they're experiencing, but my number one reason for learning acupuncture is because acupuncture plus Gong plus movement, you will perceive the energy body directly. And I think that perceiving the physical and energy body directly is one of the biggest catalysts, self-catalysts to change. Your energy body, your physical body will want that change even if you don't cognitively, even if you're not cognitively aware of it.
Yeah, I can't help but I can't help but I keep putting aside the cognitive awareness of it because my body does want it. It's just the most elegant, efficient way of delivering that is still bumpy for me. So, um, I think this is a smoother path at this point. Well, everything comes when it comes, right?
Yep. Yeah, so that micro, macro cosmic orbit, great techniques for being able to perceive the energy body directly. Why the hell would I want to do that? Because I can learn from it. I can grow from my own energy body. And
And
that's
because I'm a human and I live in it, in this body.
it's yours. Yeah. But if we're in ordinary cognition, there's almost no chance that a person will be able to access and collaborate with their own energy body. That's why what we're doing is so important. And that's the reason that I have differentiated ordinary and non-ordinary cognition. It's not to create levels. It's not to create us and them, or it's not because I'm paranoid. It's because if we can focus on non-ordinary cognition, we can access this whole undiscovered country of the human experience that we just can't do when we're too busy thinking about dumb shit. Am I going to get that raise? Does this person like me? When am I going to get the money I deserve?
Right. Well, I think that's so important for why the Qigong practice started, starting that right from the beginning, so that it's not just a talking learning atmosphere, it's a doing learning atmosphere, and it includes your body so that we're not just talking about that. Because I know I put it aside. To me, I wanted to understand what I had to do with my mind, and the body was just, yeah, doing the movement and stuff. I do my own thing, and everybody does their own thing, and I really it didn't develop simultaneously in a way that would be more elegant. So the fact that you are doing this whole Qigong thing with the practice, as the practice even, um,
As
is
yeah.
fundamental, and now that will change. It will fine tune warrior training. That's why I'm really looking forward
Yes.
to that.
Oh, warrior
That
training is so fine-tuned compared to what it used to be. I think one of the biggest differences in warrior training that I think you really appreciate, I think a person in warrior training, they are at the point where they can just label and identify the unbeneficial stream of thought. And a person can just say to themselves, now, wait a second, I'm comparing and contrasting, so I'm just going to redirect.
right. So it was
Yeah.
just do it more, do it more, do it more until you fine tune it on your own. But the
Yes.
body was kind of left out. I mean, we
Right.
talked about it. People were going to do, I thought you were all crazy going to watch the sun come up every morning. And it's so ironic that I run to go watch the sun come up every morning now. But, I didn't really fully integrate That's what I understood it intellectually, but I didn't integrate formal practice and physical practice into my understanding of what I needed to do with my mind. So it was fragmented. It was fragmented learning. And now I'm trying to assimilate it all. I'm working on assimilating it all, integrating it all. And it's kind of after the fact with some parts of it, you know. So I feel I am back in warrior training for some parts of it, so that I can get some hydrostatic flow going.
Mhm.
But so it's a little bumpier than it needs to be, and I appreciate that you have revised and refined it.
Yeah, and then so one of the ways that I've refined it is, in addition to the traps of attention, we also focus on the elements of human cognition that are a direct result of the evolution of consciousness, such as imagination, such as music, such as movement, dance, things like Tai Chi movement, if you want to do some of that. But
Yeah, I think acupuncture came in right at the right time for that too, because the
oh
points of
yeah,
attention in the body are, yeah, I
oh
can
yeah,
see I can see that evolution.
oh yeah, and then things working. Yeah, law of attraction. You should be able to see that in what I'm doing at this point. Like if you can't see that, I could explain it, I guess, but yeah, I think anybody kind of watching Ernest's transition through things, surely you see the law of attraction occurring and how it works, like the dynamics. I'm giving the example of that. But one of the things I think you'll really appreciate about warrior training is not only do we identify and redirect the traps of thinking, when we redirect, we can redirect towards the other elements of cognition, the other elements of the human mind, other than just thinking dumb shit all the time. So that, I think that's something that you'll also enjoy. That's kind of
Oh,
new about warrior
absolutely.
training.
I used to spend the majority of my time um self-flagellating, noticing what I'm doing wrong and self-flagellating about it
Yeah,
and trying to get rid of it. And now it's just
redirect.
as soon as I see it, I go to those points that we just talked about. Where's
Exactly.
this? Where's that? Where's this? Where's that? Where's it good? Okay, and now I'm back. Like, just is this any cognition that validates what I need to let go of is wasted time. It's interference in what
It
I'm
is.
attempting to do.
Noticing it is, I can't help but notice that this is a part of my present moment. However, I'm going to redirect rather than emphasize, because what I emphasize will grow. Exactly, 100%. That is what warrior training is
Oh, it's still happening. It's still remembering and forgetting. It's
100%.
just all the shit that you do in between, in the space of remembering, turning back to forgetting it. It's
Mhm.
not like I have to turn that steering wheel and get back on track. And
Yeah,
it's why it's just I don't even want to be in that space. I noticed, great. You know, I know I forgot. I'm glad I noticed. What do I need to do to get back? And it's a short.
okay, so techniques, we've offered a little bit of manta style sitting. We talked a little bit about, we started to talk about the alchemy aspect of warrior training. Donna, you can also try the other aspect of warrior training, which is the four energies of Gong, four energies of Tai Chi. Hung is expanding your bubble of perception. That should feel right away, that should feel very familiar for you. But organizing it this way can help you interact with it when you redirect in your warrior training. So when you're doing your hydrostasy, you're doing hydrostasy. You can do a little bit of warrior training when you need to. These two phases are very fluid, in terms of back and forth.
Do the four pong. What else?
So you have Pong, which is and we're using this psychologically. It has a physical, of course, but we're talking that's Tai Chi is the physical. We're talking about Gong, which is now the psychological and energetic. So Pong is expanding energy. You can imagine Ji. This is just do. In physical, this is coming from my center and it's following the shortest distance. So it's typically it is a straight line, but it's always coiling because you can achieve more physical power coiling, yada, yada. But ultimately it is go. That's how my teacher would describe G is go energy. It's like a piercing energy straight to the fucking point. In a physical sense, it's straight to displacing your enemies or your opponent's center. Does that make sense? G. Just do.
Yes.
Go. Focused intent. Yeah.
I took Shotokan karate. It was all
There you
G.
go.
It was
Yeah.
all G.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's two. So you have Pong G. Now, when you need to redirect, you can imagine that as psychological Lu. That is that rolling back energy. So let's say that, chauvinistic asshole is entering the room and he's going to fill the room with this bullshit. I'm just going to go ahead and redirect my mind, my practice back to my center, and I'm not going to label, judge, create other and they and compare I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to Lu and redirect. Does that make sense? Lu, L-U, redirect.
That does.
Lu. And then on, which we just had expanding energy. Well, we need to balance that with rooting energy. And so you can imagine your K1, imagine the more of the downward aspect of your micro or macrocosmic orbit, really focusing on energy going down simultaneously with energy going out, and that is on, pressing energy. So you're about to go into the first day of school, and you're 43 years old and you're the new kid in class. On, pressing energy. Actually, pressing energy isn't how they would use it in Tai Chi, sorry, but it is downward type of energy. They use the word press in the weirdest way, and I don't, most people don't use the word that way, so I'm not even sure what the
I
hell.
was visualizing my walk. That's what came into my mind. I wasn't
Okay.
intentionally visualizing it, but I can see the on energy when I'm climbing the stairs of that's a certain section of my walk. It's a pressing energy. It's a rooting thing. So yeah, I get it. Thanks. That's good. I'm gonna
Yep.
look that up too.
And this can all be a part of your technique, a part of your alchemy. I would deliver this as a part of internal alchemy in warrior training.
And it's called the four what?
This is, well, there's actually 8 energies of Tai Chi,
Okay.
but we're just going to use 4 because the other would be quite a stretch. I am going to find a way to incorporate them psychologically. Actually, I have it already, but I just want to focus on these first 4 for now. Splitting energy, shoulder energy, elbow energy, and plucking energy are the other 4.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I used to love kata until they described to me what I was doing when I was doing kata, and then it freaked me out. It's like I liked the visualization of the waves and I'm parting the sea, I'm turning the wheel, but once I really knew what the movements were, because it's a martial art,
Yes.
it freaked me out, but I can understand it now from a more detached perspective. But you're going to do the 4 energies in warrior training. That's going to be part of that webinar.
That is a part of warrior training specifically with internal alchemy.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's other aspects to warrior training. This is one of them. Manta style sitting is one of the formal practices that I introduce in warrior training. So manta style sitting is also, because remember, warrior training is when I start to introduce formal practices. And if a person wants to quit after having just done the first 2 layers, their lives will completely change. They'll be better. Everything will be great. Warrior training is only for a person who has the unbending desire to feel peace. Warrior training and hydrostasy are for people who have that if that's not your unbending desire, the shit ain't gonna work out. Just go ahead and put it on the back burner until
Well,
that.
yeah, it's the agreement in your mind that embodiment is what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So we talked about at least 3 different techniques today. And well, we also talked about deliberate folly, and then Jerry and Michael, you came just a little bit early, but I would recommend rewatching because Ida gave a fantastic example of the practice and some of the advanced or some of the more accumulated momentum aspects of the practice.
Derivatives, yeah.
Derivatives, yeah, more warrior training / hydrostasy derivatives. So it's not just me talking about it. We're getting theoretical evidence from other people experimenting with it, which is right on. And then last thing I would say, Donna, and I'll mention it to Ida as well, and then others who are interested, let me know. But I will qualify others to teach the layers of Gong. Obviously, you're more than ready for counterbalance and basic alignment, and then I'll outline more of warrior training, and you'll be able to pick that up also. So the certification is just a certification that you've done it, that you're qualified, but you can also share it. And so that's a part of this as well. But
Cool.
yeah, it's
Now,
so organized. Yeah.
So when Michael and I achieve wealth, we'll be able to open a center where all this will happen.
I'm going to do that anyway, but yes, I would like you guys to also.
It'll all work synergistically.
My goal is to create a type of lineage, an Gong lineage, where I have qualified you guys to teach, and you will eventually qualify others to teach. That is how things will it will reach. Whether
I like the center creation. It appeals to me.
yeah, it's the center. Mine is called the Center for Gong Studies. So the
Yeah.
Elegant Crane Studio.
I mean, watching the brick and mortar place for that to happen, that's exciting to me.
And that will occur. Yeah.
Yeah, it will.
Mine will have acupuncture, movement, meditation, things like that.
Yep. Oh yeah. I don't want to recreate my own. I'm going to participate in creating yours.
That's good. That's good too. Yeah.
What I'm going to do with my money.
Or you can hire an acupuncturist, and then we can create similar centers type of thing. Similar vibes.
One after another.
Branding. You're gonna have similar branding. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Mike, I saw your microphone.
To move every 5 years, it seems to be what happens.
Every
So
5 years? Yeah.
I have no issue with moving, so it's not a big deal.
I don't either, but I really like Chicago and Illinois. And my acupuncture license will be for Illinois. So obviously I can't move to Connecticut because I'm not an MD. So
I really like where I am too, but it doesn't mean I'm going to stay here.
likewise. Yeah. That's on the island of possibility.
Yes. Sound good, Michael?
Yes, I'm in.
Okay. So Gong website coming soon. Group study went to Wednesdays. The 20 topics are done. I'm not doing one-on-ones until I get a grip on my school schedule. One-on-ones, I will do a free one-on-one with folks every now and then, not like once a week type of thing, but like, especially like Donna, if you were curious about an area because you want to share it, we'll do a free one-on-one type of thing where I can help you with that. I'm not doing the kind of one-on-ones where someone needs help manifesting a Ferrari or something like that. I'm not even going to do anything remotely like that. That's
Yeah, it's coming. It hasn't taken shape yet. It's coming.
yeah. All right, Manta style sitting, deliberate folly. We did a little bit of the internal alchemy, the Tai Chi mind, Peng, Lu, Ji, An. So we talked about a lot of cool stuff today.
Micro, macro, orbit.
Micro, macro, orbit. The more that you pay attention to the 3 Dantians, the more you'll see the 3 areas of cognition. That actually leads to a really fun section of warrior training / hydrostasy, where you're actually interacting directly with those 3 centers as a form of interaction with the present moment.
3 areas of cognition.
Your heart has a neural network. Over 40,000 synaptic connections.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
40,000 times 40,000? Yeah, something. But then also you have the gut-brain connection. We know that the gut is a type of brain, telling you what you want to eat, for example. So we know that we have 3 areas of cognition. That's not just the brain. Remember, way back, I said that cognition is likely the result of complex bundles of energy. That bundle of energy is the brain, the heart, and the lower dantian.
I have to tell you that I really came to understand that on a feeling level more when I was doing deliberate intermittent fasting.
Mhm.
I don't time it and I don't pay attention to it now because I can feel it, but there was a whole education about me and my perception of the world when my stomach, when my digestive system is completely empty for a period of time, completely empty. I mean, other than fluids, obviously. But yeah, it really changed my level of understanding of my body in space just from and how I think and how I perceive um and process emotion just from having an empty digestive system.
Yes.
It was really very informative.
And
I
then
probably can't make words for it now.
informative is a good word. Like that's informative is we're hoping to create a communication with ourselves, you know, our body communicating with our mind and our body communicating with the energy body communicating with the mind and the physical body. And we're not just talking shit, you know, we're all one, man, and we're just putting this
Well,
shit,
that's the
filing it back
alchemy.
as concepts.
That's the
Yeah.
alchemy.
That's the alchemy, is the active communication. And the alchemy is also the change that occurs as a result of attention. That's it, just attention in that area, a little bit of imagination and breath. And before you know it, the body is telling you what it wants and what it needs. And the gut is communicating with the heart, and the heart is communicating with the mind, and the mind, and now everything is communicating with everything. And we are in what we would
Far
call
less separation, far less fragmentation, far less, it's just a more fluid experience.
alignment. We're going with the Tao. You don't know, you can't go with something if you're not able to pay attention to the elements that comprise it.
Yeah, I can notice what um, my body needs long before I have to experience the detriment of finding out what it doesn't need.
Mhm.
You know,
And then, Donna, you can also notice how some of the things, the way that we're doing it, it removes the deity, it removes this image of perfection, it removes dietary restriction. Ida's example was so good because it's the perfect example of she was making balanced moderation or balanced type of adjustments based on her balance. That is the perfect example of individual change, not thou shalt not eat meat.
absolutely. And the soup that was created by her doing that, being involved above the threshold of recognition in the whole alchemy of the experience, um, gave more depth and breadth and color and life and appreciation to the experience because of it. She got more from that experience with her family than she had ever had before, even along with all the behavioral change that occurred.
Mhm.
Even in the retelling of it, I think
Yes.
having to choose the words, like you said, for optimal communication and why the words work and all of it. It continues to, it's part of a stream that continues.
Mhm. Right on. Any questions? Jerry, Michael, Shayna, anything?
Millions, but that I think I'm looking forward to the workshop, and I'm going to do those things that you suggested. I really appreciate it.
Mhm. And it will probably be multiple workshops because warrior training is it can be quite in depth, just like everything else. But the next thing that we're going to have is basic alignment. Oh, excuse me, counterbalance. I have counterbalance. I've already started it. It's all outlined. Counterbalance includes stuff like segmenting, battlegrounds, situational techniques. I have removed the word mindfulness from everything, so I noticed myself saying that. No mindfulness. Mindfulness is fine, but
Substitute dialogue,
substitute dialogue
redirection,
there,
yeah, all that.
redirection. Well, it's mainly redirection. That's it. Mainly it's about the redirection technique and the rule of three. That's what counterbalance is all about. Repetitive, habitual, not making me feel well. I don't want to overcomplicate it because that is going to be the hardest part of the practice. You know, I'm just being honest. There's no point in me going around telling people that this is the easiest shit you're ever going to do in your life and all you have to do is sit around and level up or whatever. I'm not going to tell people that because redirecting your thoughts is fucking difficult because you're not used to doing it. A person isn't used to taking the kite and directing it how they see fit. So it's foreign. They don't know how to do it. They feel clumsy. They forget. It feels like work. So I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and tell people that the rule of three is the easiest shit on earth. It's not. It's the simplest, but it doesn't make it necessarily easy. Should it be easy? Yes. But it's not easy because of what we have created. We have created a construct that makes it feel difficult. It's simple as shit though.
What is easy when you begin is going into your patterns of behavior. That's what's easy when you first start.
And that goes with the principle of momentum. Whichever has the most amount of momentum will feel the easiest. And then what has the momentum of habit, because it's just so easy to default into habit. Yes. And then according to the principle of momentum in practice, eventually the redirection technique gets easier. It starts to feel easier simply because of principle. We're more familiar with it. We have more momentum with it.
Feels better.
Feels better. It's like a skill. Yeah. And it feeling better eventually becomes the reason to do it. Yeah.
It's just like a skill. I was watching a guy on the beach parasailing. So he's standing on a board, right? And there's this, he gets his kite, this arc-shaped kite up in the air, catching the wind, which is a whole bunch of principles there. It's got to catch the wind, it's got to get into the air, and then he lays flat in the water with his feet strapped into this board, and he waits for the wind to be in a certain place for him to pull himself up and stand. And if the wind circles around, he's got to let go and sit back in the water and wait for it to come around again. And so it's simple principles flying a kite, but there's a whole bunch of things at play, and it becomes easier and easier. And he was doing this I watched him for 40 minutes, maybe, just looking at all the principles, which is exactly everything you just said. And he's got a wetsuit on, he's got a dry suit, he's got various things to help him do this. And he's not thinking about any dumb shit, because all he can think about is what he's doing in order to take flight, you know. And he takes flight. He comes way off the ground, off the water, and then lands again. And so it was all of those principles you just said, and it looks easy. He makes it look easy, but it's just lots of practice. It's just lots of practice and basic fundamentals of wind, and body dynamic. And he was an older guy, like he wasn't this strapping, strong, top physical condition. He's just been doing it for so long. He knows what to do. He knows what he's got to do with the wind and the kite and what he's dealing with. And I bet he'll do that well into his years. He's in the Sound, so there's not that many big waves. It doesn't require a lot of power. It does require a lot of power, but it requires less power because of his technique. And that's exactly what you're talking about. Just watching him was a perfect example of the practice to me.
Mm-hmm. If there's principle, yeah. Yep. All right. Well, I will see everybody next Wednesday, because we're moving Thursday to Wednesday. And then, of course, we're done with the 20 topics, even though I only got to like 17. I had to round it out. But yeah, I will see everybody again on Wednesday if you can make it. I will definitely post this I wrote down some of the key techniques that were shared, and I'll put that in the description so that we can remember that this video shares these techniques. And I highly recommend the techniques that we shared today. big part of warrior training. I mean, I would really recommend practicing these. There's definitely a reason. If you want, again, if a person just wants to stop and not do warrior training or hydrostasy, they will still benefit. But unbending desire to feel peace in a weird fucking world like this, I highly recommend warrior training. All right, well, I will see you guys again next Wednesday. Until then, let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. And then website will be coming soon. Counterbalance PDF will be with you guys very soon as well. Warrior training probably a little further out, but by the end of this year, we will have the 4 basic aspects of Gong, meaning that I might not, meaning that I'll do the hydrostasy, the gates of seeing, and then warrior training, the psychological aspect of it. We'll be working on the formal practice that might take a little bit longer. Because remember, warrior training introduces formal practice for the first time in Gong. Like, really introduces it, or really emphasizes it, I guess I should say. Okay, see you guys next Wednesday if you can make it. Have a great rest of your day.
Hey, have fun at school.
Yep, thank you. I have orientation today at 10, so.
Woohoo!
My name's Ernest. I live in Chicago. I like acupuncture. All right, see you guys.